24th, 2022. Time is 10:04 a.m. This is a special meeting agenda as we meet as the County Board of Canvassers, and we're meeting with our clerk, Jim Brannon, elections manager Asa Gray, and we'll be going over the election results for this past May 17th election. Attending are Commissioners Duncan and Filios. Commissioner Bill Brooks is excused. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. One and only business item, the canvass is indicated pursuant to Idaho Code 34-1205. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Filios. We did complete our primary election, and what we have is a listing of successes and a little places where we can improve. And what we're going to do here is walk through the staff performance and the turnout and the audits that were done. One of the things that I would like to just start with is we had a lot of voters not understand how they could vote. 3 of the 4 parties have closed primaries: the Libertarian, the Constitution, and the Republican Party all have closed primaries. We had an awful lot of people who, of the Constitution, Libertarian, and some Democrats, because there were no county races on the primary, write in names and circle the little bubble. However, those are not valid write-ins, but yet, as Idaho Code requires us to duplicate the ballots exactly. So if there was someone written in for a county race on a Democratic, a Republican, or, a Constitution or a Libertarian, that put us very behind, and that delayed the results. And it's covered later on, but that was the biggest impedance to getting results. We would have been done approximately 3.5 hours earlier. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Asa Gray and let him walk through this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Asa Gray for the record. A couple things I want to highlight. I wanted to highlight our voter turnout this election. We had a countywide average of 34.6% voter turnout, which is, I would say, higher than some elections we see. Obviously not as high as our general elections, but it's on point with
36.4.
Oh, sorry, 36.4. Excuse me, I misspoke. Forgive me for that.
It's about equal to November.
It's high.
Yep, so it was right around the range of our November city elections, and on point with higher than primaries we've had in the past as well, especially higher than 18. A couple other things I want to point out. We did have just over 6,000 voters vote by absentee ballot, and 2,244 voters voted early. Couple things that we can, have some improvement on is we did have, as noted both on the narrative and in the abstract, we did have 5 absentee ballots that were cured by voters. In other words, they had an issue, a mismatched signature, missing signature, something like that, cured by voters on election day itself that did not end up going in with the rest of the ballots and getting opened and getting counted. So in order to preserve the constitutional right of voters' secrecy, we did not, when we found these after the fact, we did not go add them and run them through the tabulator, because it would be very obvious how these voters had voted then if those counts were to increase by 1 in those precincts. But just something for us to note in our canvas as well. A few other things we want to talk about. Jim already mentioned the duplications, and when there was, a ballot that had to be duplicated because of hesitation marks or something, how that slowed us down with having to duplicate all the write-ins as well. We did have 3 duplication boards by the end of by that time of the morning. We did have 3 duplication boards going round the clock for those extra 3.5 hours, trying to get those done as efficiently as possible. We also had a write-in board for most of the night that was tallying the write-in votes, because as may or may not be known, our tabulators count and kick out ballots that have a write-in vote where there has been a valid write-in candidate filed for that office, but it cannot determine the name that is written in on the line. So our write-in board has to go determine if that is a valid write-in candidate, and if so, the vote should count for them, or if it is a, what we call undeclared, I believe it is, write-in, where it's not someone who is an official write-in candidate for that office. This election, we had 6 write-in candidates for precinct committee seats, and we also had 3 write-in candidates at the gubernatorial level, 2 on the Democratic Party side, 1 on the Constitution Party side. So we did have multiple votes cast for those candidates that we had to then tally. You can see in your narrative, under poll worker performance, you can see that 99.7% of our ballots had 0 ballot issuance errors, and that is high, like we like to see it. We do have a list of some small errors that were made at precincts. Typically, there were no more than 2 or 3 errors made in a precinct, and many precincts did not have any errors. But ones that had any errors, you can see here on this list. If there's any questions on that, I'm more than happy to answer them. I won't go through them one by one and bore you with the detail, because you can see that there. And then we actually did not have quite as many registrations this election as we've seen in some bigger elections in the past. I attribute that to the fact that we had a lot of registrations happen ahead of time with both community efforts from groups to get people registered for the primary or just in general, and also because we did have redistricting and the precinct changes, we notified voters of their new precincts ahead of time, so hopefully there were, less issues with people showing up at the wrong place as well, and having to be sent elsewhere. In addition to, obviously that's not a registration, but in addition to that, I think that was a helpful thing as well. I do want to point out, we did have a new registration form this election that the state created specifically for the primary, and that is something that did make it a little more complex because things were in different places on the cards. And so for the poll workers, that was just an added layer of things they had to watch for and deal with. I don't think that I have anything else I wanted to cover. Anything else that you wanted to cover, Jay?
No, I'm good.
Any questions?
I don't have any. Do you? Straightforward.
Yeah.
Any public comment? Good job.
Thank you.
Long job, but good job, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say our staff, both our full-time staff at the elections department and the temps that we had working this election, did an amazing job. We have several experienced temps that came in again this election that were basically able to manage most of the early voting process so that our 5 staff members, myself included, didn't have to be running back and forth all the time into early voting. We could focus on absentees, on prepping test deck for logic and accuracy, all the other things that we had to get done. So that was a huge help. And our full-time staff did an amazing job, as always.
How many votes were cast, and maybe you touched on this, on Election Day?
On Election Day itself, we had, I've got the number here, 28,474 ballots cast.
Out of total ballots cast were what? 30?
Total ballots cast was, let me grab it here, 36,733.
Okay. 28 out of 36. It's about
about-
75% were cast on Election Day. Interesting.
Question, if absentee voting were to go away except for maybe shut-ins or military, what would that do? Do you think that?
Well, right now, it can't go away
Right.
because Idaho is a no excuse absentee state
Sure.
until laws are changed.
Right, but if state law were to be changed,
Well.
would that be a negative
Commissioner
effect?
Duncan, I've learned a long time ago not to worry about what ifs. When laws are changed, we'll deal with it at that time. I have no idea of how to respond to that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
10:15, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right, so we did not adjourn the meeting. We, but I'm ready to make a
We
motion.
neglected, yes. So is there a motion,
Yeah.
please, to accept the Board of Canvas?
Yes, I move that we accept and approve the canvass of the May 17, 2022 primary election pursuant to Idaho Code 34-1205.
Second.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Vilios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Time 10:16, meeting adjourned.
There.
Okay, guys.
Sorry, I was doing math, and so.